That's your upper hind quarter on a bear. Now what you can see is that we have this fully articulating knee because there's no more connection of the quadriceps there. So what I'm going to do is cut into this, actually remove this femur, and talk about the shank a little bit. So what I just did is I cut underneath the kneecap. I'm coming up through the patella ligament, and I'm cutting down the other side, so I'm going to remove that kneecap. Always being aware of where I'm putting the tip of my knife to make sure that I do not cut my fingers. When you're butchering your animals and you're doing this at home on your own, there's our kneecap, we're going to throw that away. One thing to always remember is a sharp knife is a safe knife. If your knife is not sharp, you're going to have to saw through things, you're going to have to put your fingers a little too close to the blade, and you don't want to do that. So it's important to always have some level of knife sharpener next to you, so when it starts to dull, you can give it the once over on the coarse side, the once over on the non-coarse side, and then on the ceramic side. And that'll touch it up enough and sharpen it enough that you'll be able to get through the rest of your butchering. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take my knife, I'm able to feel with my fingers where that femur, this upper leg bone, the upper leg bone on you, meets the lower leg, and I'm simply going to cut around and remove it and have one full piece of shank right there. So I'm going to go in, use my fingers to find where that is. I'm just feeling for a moving bone. And I've identified it. I'm actually able to see it. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut into that. That's the joint. Remove that piece. A little bit left of the sirloin there. Work my knife down in between, and then remove that knee. And you can see now I got the tip of my knife between that femur. I'm able to get in there and see the ligaments that people commonly tear, the ACL, the PCL, all that stuff. Need to get in and cut those ligaments. That'll make that knee even more movable. This muscle right here is the calf muscle of the bear, part of the shank meat. Notice that this calf muscle has the Achilles tendon, which connected to the paw of the bear. We're on the posterior aspect, so it's your calf as well. It actually spans two joints. It ends up on the foot, but it also connects to the femur. So in order to preserve the entirety of the shank meat to make the best birria, ossobuco, or whatever you can, we're going to have to remove the attachment point on the posterior aspect of the femur as well. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. Just cut into where it attaches to the femur, which will make the femur easier to remove as well. I'm all the way through it. You can see that it's essentially two bones now. I've preserved 100% of the shank. I'm going to take my knife and cut right down through that ligament that's there. We have our femur and we have our shank. Now you can clean this shank up a little bit. If you're going to freeze it, personally, we would take all the hair off, get any of the dirt off, and then wrap it whole like this. Why we will wrap it whole prior to cutting it into 2-inch pieces that we make ossobuco with is that meat is much easier to cut through if it's frozen or semi-frozen. So a small shank like this, you put it into the freezer, wrapped in your saran wrap and butcher paper, take it out. You can use a hacksaw, you can use a reciprocating saw, you can use any number of things to cut it into its 2-inch pieces for your ossobuco. If you want, you can trim all of this meat off of it right here. So you have this ball of meat down. You set it on your smoker and you smoke all that wonderful meat. Then you put it into a crock pot and make a birria out of it as well. So what we have is the hind quarter of a bear, none of which, well, I shouldn't say none, less than probably 6 ounces of meat is being turned into grind. Now, personal preference, you can grind all of this and it'll be fantastic, but we would strongly encourage you to taste the meat before you decide to grind it.